What's up, everyone? Welcome to my channel here. Today I have a super fun guitar lesson for you. If you were a 90s kid growing up in the 90s and you watched cartoons, you probably watched Doug. Doug was an amazing show on Nickelodeon. I loved that show growing up. Probably my favorite show for a while. And it was probably my dad's favorite cartoon that he liked to watch with me and my older sister, in big part because it was filled with so much great music. If you remember that show, it had so much awesome kind of scatting music and just different vocal songs and numbers as transitional scenes throughout the show. But it also had that killer intro song, you know, do 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 do. I hope that brought back some awesome memories. Maybe not my singing, but the melody is such an amazing song. And what I love about that song is it's got all these different styles throughout, sort of different themes represented. You see Patty Mayonnaise, it gets all pretty. Then you hear the part that I want to teach you today, which is the Roger Klotz theme song when he breaks onto the scene. This riff right here. Yes. Now, if you remember the show, Roger Klotz was that green fella who was always messing with Doug, and he always had an attitude, and they really represented that with this kind of crunchy, aggressive guitar riff that they threw into the middle of this sort of delightful sounding song. And I remember as a kid, that was such a cool riff, and I really wanted to be able to play that. And so if you also want to be able to play that riff, today is your lucky day because I'm going to teach you how to play it. All right, there are a few things you're going to need before we actually start learning the riff. The first thing you're going to need is an electric guitar. Now, if you only have an acoustic guitar, you could still totally learn this riff. It might not sound quite as crunchy, quite as gritty and rockin' as having an electric guitar, but no worries. You can learn it on an acoustic, and next time you go to your local guitar shop, you could shred it on electric guitar that you pluck off the wall, and maybe you'll turn some 90s kids' heads in the room. After you get your guitar, you're going to want to plug it into an amp that can give you a crunchy, overdriven sound. And I got my guitar plugged into an amp modeler that's built into the recording program that I use. And I've pulled up an overdriven sound. It sounds like this. So I've got it set to where it's crunchy when I do chords, but also enough drive to sound good when I do riffs. And once you get that dialed in, we can start learning the actual riff. All right, so once again, here's the riff. Now, this riff is in the key of G. The song starts in the key of G and then actually does a half step up key change right after this riff. But up until that point, it's in the key of G. Now, this riff starts with 2 G power chords. And you can do this in a couple different spots. You can do this here, or you can do this here. So if you do it up here, it's going to be the first finger, 10th fret of the A string, third finger, 12th fret of the D string, hitting that D note, and then your fourth finger, your pinky, will be the 12th fret of the G string. So 1, 5, 1. Now, I actually prefer to do it down here, which is the same exact notes, but you're going to do this in a different position. You're going to do this on your first finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the D string, so grabbing that G note there, and then your third finger, your ring finger, is going to be on the 7th fret of the G, and then the octave, that higher G note, is going to be on the 8th fret of the B string. And the reason why I'm going to choose to do this, a couple reasons. One, it's closer to the actual riff, proximity-wise. It's just a lot closer to jump down to here. But secondly, because it's those thinner strings, it kind of cuts through, in my opinion, a little bit brighter. As still sounds good up there too. Sounds a little fatter if you want that sound. But I like doing it up here. But what's really important about either one of these is that following that second hit, there's this slide down that's super important to give the feel of the original riff. So you could just go, which sounds fine, but the slide sounds pretty cool. So you can do it up here, or you can do it here. And sometimes it's just the littlest nuances that make a riff stand out. Sometimes it's just a little slide, a little bend, a little vibrato, whatever it is. So I like to do it in either one of those spots, but I prefer down here. So after you do those first 2 chords, the next part of the riff is a little bit tricky. Here's where we start getting to some single note riffs. Now, this next riff is a major pentatonic riff, which basically means major blues riff. So there's minor pentatonic, like, and then there's major pentatonic. Major meaning like sort of more cheerful sounding, minor a little bit more sad sounding. Then major is a little bit more, a little brighter sounding. So that first part of this next riff goes, start on the 5th fret with your 1 finger on the A string. You go, you hammer on to the 7th fret of the A string with your 3 finger. So pick, hammer on, and then you jump your 1 finger up to the next string on the same fret, the 5th fret, which is your D string. So, and then you do pick that note. So pick, hammer, pick, and then you go back down to that note you were just on the 7th fret of the A string. So, and you pick that note as well. So a little slower. Okay, and then you're going to take that same finger, your 3 finger, and you're going to jump up to the next string, and you're going to, now before I actually continue, both this note and this note are what's called staccato, which is a little bit like, it's a tighter note. You're not letting it ring out, so it's, instead of, it's, so a little bit tighter. And for one, it's how the riff goes, but another cool thing about that is it makes it to where you can jump up to that next string without it sounding like you're sort of leaving the note too early, because it already stops so abruptly. So it kind of gives you that microsecond of time to get to the next string. So, and then you jump up that finger to here, and you're going to go, you're going to do a bend, and this is like a half step bend. So half step meaning you're just bending the note up to what that next fretted note would sound like. So instead of doing, you're going. So again, we have, so half step, bring it back down, and then pick that note again on the 5th fret of the D. So, okay. So one more time. Pick, hammer, pick, 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 bend, half step, bend, back down, pick. And then to end that little riff right there, you go back down to the 7th fret of the A string, and then back down to the 5th fret of the A string. So we have, so a little faster. One more time. One more time slow. So from the top so far, we have. Okay, one more time. Now you notice after I do that bend, when I hit that G note, which is the 5th fret of the D string, but it's a G note. When I hit that note, I throw in some vibrato, which is that kind of like, gives it the kind of waveriness, which gives it some emotion. Now, there's an easier place to play this riff if you want on these open strings. You could go open D string, open, or then the 2nd fret of the D, and then the open G string, back down to the D 2nd fret, and then. But two reasons why I don't think it's good to play this riff there. One, you can't do any of that vibrato stuff because you're landing on open strings. I guess you could go. You could bend your string back behind the nut there, but it's kind of hard to jump over there real quick. But secondly, in the riff that follows right after this, it's going to be way hard to jump down to the last part from here. So it's overall, I just think it's better to do the riff here. You can throw in that little for some attitude. So anyway, next part of the riff goes back to those 2 G chords. So there's kind of 2 sections of this riff. Each section starts with that. Part 2, and so the next riff starts the same as the first part, which is, you know that part already. Pick, hammer, pick, pick. And then instead of going, you're actually going to do that same riff, but an octave lower, which means it's the same notes, they're just a different octave. So now, because you have to jump down, what I like to do is I like to play this next riff with my middle finger, because the ring finger is being occupied on that 7th fret right now of the A string. So I'll jump down the ring finger, or the middle finger, to that 5th fret of the E string, the low E string, and then you're gonna do the same thing, half step bend, and then end with your 1 finger on the 3rd fret of the low E, which is that low G note. So now, if you listen to the original riff on the Doug song, they don't go quite as staccato or quite as tight on that second one. It's a little bit more open, just slightly, so it's not so... Yeah, you can, I mean, honestly, you can do it staccato, you can do a little more open. Either way, it's going to sound cool, but it's just something I noticed when I was listening to it. It's a little tighter on the first half, but anyway, could just be how that guitar player chose to play it for that certain take. So again, that second half is same two G chords, and then hammer on, pick, half step, 3rd fret on the low E G note. Just throwing some vibrato there. So that's the whole thing, everybody. That's the entire Roger Klotz riff. I mean, I guess if you want to throw the little key change in there, it goes... Just slide that up a half step. But the whole thing from the top really slows like this. G. Now, as I was playing it just now, one other thing that I wanted to point out that is maybe the trickiest part of the whole riff is when you end that first half, when it goes... you need to be able to quickly jump that finger back up to the next string to hit that G chord again. So you kind of got to jump it back up. So there's a couple ways you can sort of cheat this. You can just keep the finger there and sort of bar it, which means you're laying it across multiple strings, and go. So I'm still on that note, that D note on the A string, 5th fret, but I'm also barring it to where it's hitting that G note on the D string. So, but I prefer just to jump the finger back up real quick. So. So that's the whole thing. I'll play it for you full speed. So there you go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Now you can grab your leather jacket, slick back your hair, grab your blue suede shoes and your electric guitar, and rock out like Roger Klotz. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.